we are pulling this out of the game, that we recognize people that have best played the hand they've been dealt, which is true for the game, but it's also true in life, and taking the cards that we have, and we both have really amazing backstories, but taking all of that and shuffling it up and re-looking at it and, doing a little magic to it. And then we come up with something that's truly amazing. And then we call that Seedtacular. And we want to start giving out those medallions and then allowing people to also sew those Seedtacular medallions into their own community.
Hello, and welcome to episode 107 of the Living and Leading with Emotional Intelligence podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Nicole. Today, I'm introducing a friend of mine, Kimblin Harris. I've known Kimblin for several years now, and she is a fun and creative and ambitious entrepreneur who has just launched a game to get people to connect with one another and build stories together. Now, this episode is different from many of the episodes on this podcast because we are talking about a product here, but I do want you to see how Kimblin's game can be used in so many different ways to help foster communication, develop connection, which is all part of emotional intelligence. And on top of that, Kimblin is going to share her journey of developing this game and how she had to be resilient and have that strength, that emotional intelligence to get through those challenges that we all face as entrepreneurs, especially. So I'm super excited to share this episode with you. Again, it's very different, but it's very fun. And since we're right around the holiday season, why not talk about something that you can get for your family? So as you are listening to this episode, Kimblin has launched her fundraiser for developing this game, One Good Seed. So all of that will be in the show notes. But without further ado, here is my friend, Kimblin Harris. Here we go. Hello, Kimblin. Welcome to the Living and Leading with Emotional Intelligence podcast. It is a pleasure to have you on. This has been a long time coming. We should have done this before now. But as we were talking about before I hit the record button, it seems like things happen when they're supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
Because if we would have waited or if we would have done this sooner, we wouldn't have been able to have the discussion that we're about to have today.
Oh my goodness. I just, that gives me chills just thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we dive into that, I would love for you to introduce yourself in your own way to our listeners and viewers.
Hi, my name is Kimblin Harris here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And I had an issue. I was not an issue, but I'm like, how am I introducing myself today? So I am a creator. First of all, I'm a creative. I love the newness of doing something new. So I guess that's a thing. And I am a technologist by profession, and I love to be a creative and a maker. I'm a teacher. I love to inspire, and I love that I get to spread joy in every area that I touch. And so if I say people know me, they know me as that, in spreading joy and love and being generous with what I know. So
and you're also a founder. Don't forget that.
Yes, I am a founder. Yes. An inventor. Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So let's talk about the organization or the company that you founded and what you are doing around that, because you have some really cool new things in the works, and we're going to get into that discussion today.
Yes. So, what we think about right now, or what the focus is right now, under my legal umbrella of Clark Kim. So that is my legal company name, which is Clark Kim. My niece kind of inspired the name because she called me Clark Kimmy one day because of all the things that I do and touch. But under the umbrella of that, we have founded a storytelling experience, sometimes called the game. And so it is an original, engaging, interactive storytelling experience using the power of words and themes and how we collectively tell better stories together. And so we are in the middle of a launch to crowdfund and place our initial order at the beginning of the year. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, one good seed.
One good seed. Yes.
Yeah. So, what inspired this? Because I love your story behind it.
So I recently had to create a video that, as part of my crowdfunding campaign, I had to create a video and be really precise about what that means. And so for me, it really literally started out because of a furlough. I had planted a seed in my journal about 3 years ago. I love game night. I love getting people together. I love collectively spending time with amazing people and laughing. That is the core of what this is. It's about spending time with people, regardless of what we're doing, making space. And when I was on a furlough last year, I just looked at my creative journal. I had lots of ideas that I collect all the time. And this one just kind of caught my attention. And it's kind of like I call it sprouted. It sprouted from the pages and said, we think we need this. And I think it really was from I was missing my community. I really, being at home with my son, collectively lost my peer and social community all at the same time. And so the idea of a game or an experience, because it really grew into something different than where it started, really caught my eye. And that's really what caught my eye. And then once I started sharing it with other people, the idea just grew and spent most of last year developing it. And we landed with a prototype at the end of the year. And now we're about to ready to launch. So
It's so exciting. One thing I want to ask you is in your journey as an entrepreneur, or even while playing this game, doing prototypes, things like that, what lessons have you learned, and how has emotional intelligence played into your journey and your experience?
I think for me, the biggest lesson that I learned and having to do this relaunch, because it is a relaunch, I launched it in February after spending a significant amount of time in 2020 developing it. I thought I was ready and really realized fairly quickly that I wasn't as ready as I thought and that I kind of missed the mark a little bit on my who. And by pulling that back, I there was lots of advisors and I saw a couple different um, posts from mentors where they talked about as entrepreneurs that a lot of people share that the glossy reel and the highlight reel, but never really the real story. And that gave me courage to just be honest that I needed to pull it because I had to decide in that moment, was I going to let it fail or was I just going to pull it?
Mm.
And I really just had to decide that I'd rather pull it and say I need to rework it than let it fail and then say I had to rework it. And so because I knew there were several things that weren't right. And so for me, the maturity of that really hit me to do that, but I wasn't prepared for the journey because I didn't know what was going to come after. And I literally thought it was just a few things I need to retool, my messaging, my people, and that I was going to take a couple of weeks and do that. And that's not what happened. And the more I sat with it, the more I realized I didn't really understand. Not that I didn't understand, I didn't really know what I didn't know. And it wasn't until I was able to play with my family, I think it was in May or it was over the beginning of the summer, and play with some family members. And it was 5 generations of women
Wow.
and an uncle. And we hadn't been together much at all, really, the previous year since the beginning of COVID. And when I woke up the next morning and I really felt the connectivity and thinking about the way we laughed, and it was a 5-year-old cousin and my grandmother who was 86 at the time, and how we were all able to play. And that really for me, it was about the connection. It was not about the game. And so that started the journey of refinding my why and my who. And that came to really confirm everything this last week. I had an extended group of family that I was able to play with. And because I had not played with a larger audience at all, I thought it would be an opportunity to get some extra footage to, just to have some more B-roll stuff for the video, put my tripod up. And when I tell you after 2.5 hours, never put my camera on the tripod, I have no footage. I have
Oh,
no footage of that. And we played my game, which actually didn't go well, which is funny because we were in the middle of a hotel lobby. And the part of the story is that you have to hear what other people are saying to be part of the story, which is that whole part of listening,
mhm.
right? And you can't you can't contribute if you don't know, you can't hear. And so it didn't go as well as I planned, but that was also research. So I know to say that in my how to play well, right? It has to be an environment where you can hear. So that's the takeaway from that. But I'm also a believer in other games that I feel are more aligned to larger groups. And so I have those. And so we were able to kind of, and as I said before, this is a beginning, end, middle icebreaker. It's meant to get your brain warmed up, transitioned over, which is what I believe. So that's what I did. Switched on to the next thing. And 2.5 hours later, no one picked up a phone. There was 12 of us. We were laughing. No one left. Everyone was engaged.
Wow.
Tears, laughter. I got to see parts of people I've known my entire life that I'd never seen before. And that really what the message is all about. It's not about the tube or what's in the tube or anything about that. And it took me months to come to that. But now that I've got it, that is the maturity to be, I'm releasing what I expected it to be. And I'm now making space for what it was always meant to be all along. And so that was the maturity that I had to come to over these last few months. And so now with this relaunch, I'm coming with that message of the connectivity in the space and the people, because I have no footage of this amazing night that when I created this, it was literally with some of these people in mind, because I knew that they were funny. And I was like, I cannot wait to play with this person and this person and this person and this person. They were in the room. I have no footage.
Wow. So Kimberlyn, two things that you said there that I want to kind of just expand upon just for a little bit. And the first thing was having the courage and the awareness to pull the first launch. That in and of itself, to me, tells me that, you have to have that emotional intelligence, because that takes awareness, but it also takes resilience and that surrender to the purpose of that, right? You have to realize, like, what is my overall mission? And is it about the end result, or is it also about the journey? Because I think a lot of people miss out on that. They're so eager to get to the final outcome that they rush through the journey and they miss a lot of little trails along the way to explore. I think that's so important. And the fact that you were open to, which is another part of awareness, open to other people's suggestions and recommendations. And that's just important in life, but also as an entrepreneur. It's so exciting. So I want to read what you have on your website. And it says, where stories are rooted in every word. Do you mind if I read this out loud?
Oh, no problem.
Okay, cool. Because I think this just kind of summarizes the intent behind it. So, born out of a sincere passion for connecting with people and entertaining in my home, I developed this unique storytelling experience. The game's creative concept is based on memories of the challenges I faced moving and attending 13 schools. Wow, that's crazy. From kindergarten to 12th grade. So what you're trying to do is really strengthen relationships and get us back to the roots of just, like you said, making that space and really connecting with people. And I think we have really lost touch with that connection to others. And we see communication sometimes as transactional. What am I getting out of this? Especially in the business world, right? You see on LinkedIn, people are like, oh, I really want to get to know more about you. And really, I want to try to sell you something. This is all about what I'm trying to get out of this. Granted, this is a game, so it's a little bit different, right? But it sparks that open conversation and allows us to see that we're more alike than we're different as a human society. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And one of the things in working with someone who's helping with my PR that she brought up and release that will go out is my concept of release to receive, which is releasing things that no longer serve me to make space for things that do. And I didn't understand how she was going to fold that in there. But when she said, in this particular game, you are releasing a version of yourself and being open and sharing. So is in the being authentic and getting in touch with your authentic self and releasing your version of the story that you are then making space for this experience. And so I so got that when she wrote that it is genuinely you showing up, and by showing up, you are literally giving of yourself to this story, because the concept of the game really is in sharing of one story. We are using the cards that we have been given, and we are using them together to weave this one of a kind original story. So everyone is playing their part. And by releasing your version of that, really collectively is what we receive on the end is this one unique experience.
And that's like both literal and metaphorical, the cards that we've been dealt, right?
Yes.
In life and in the game.
Right.
So I would love, do you have any examples of some of the cards that you have with you?
So,
or off the top of your head?
Yeah, I do. So when I think about, like, the cards are broken out into three categories. So there's themes. So think of a theme as a way to narrow or focus the story. So one of the themes that I got to use on a pitch recently, it was actually kind of funny. The pitch, the theme that I pulled randomly out the hat was always late to the party. And one of the executives that was on my in my room was late to the call, and he literally joined the call right as I pulled the theme out to read it. And he was like, "Oh, hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm just joining, keep going, don't." And I was like, "Well, I'm just scared to start giving examples." So I started, and I opened the theme, and it said always late to the party, and everybody laughed because it was so relevant to that situation. I said, "Well, we're going to make this story about Mark, who's always late to the party." And so the cards are going to be the nouns and the adjectives. So people, place, and thing, and then describer words. And so all of the cards have one word or a series of words. And so you're going to use the cards to collectively start the story. And so in this case, I would have had maybe 5 words, and then I would have had 3 describer words. And so the story that I told was, my friend Mark, right? And then some of the words would have been like train or chili, and I would craft a story using some of these words, just talk about it. So I would just make up a story. So I actually have an example. Give me 1 second.
Sure. Okay.
So I have my cards here in hand. These are the red cards are my people, place, and thing card. Okay. And then my white cards are my describe this or adjectives. So we have our theme. Our theme is I love nature. Yes. So we have 20 themes that will be included in the initial round, but some of the fun things that we like to do are allow the players to actually contribute themes. And that makes it super fun and personal as well. I did an example on my Facebook page where my niece had a theme called the toilet portal.
Oh,
yes, that was an interesting start of a story. And
the toilet portal, like the portable. Okay.
So that was a theme so we would have made a story around the toilet portal, because my niece, when she gets stuck in the story, she loves to use items to transport her to another dimension.
Interesting.
So that's a tip and a technique if you get stuck with the words. And so how this works is the head seed, or the person starting the story, is going to choose the theme, either the theme I've contributed or a theme that collectively people have contributed. And randomly, they're going to choose a theme, and then they're going to use their cards to start the story. Everyone else, having the same amount of cards individually, will then add on to the story based on the cards in their hand.
Got it.
And one round is one story. So if there's 8 people, everyone goes, and the 8th person will finalize the story, and then it'll be done. So cool. It's recommended to have at least 4 to 5 people to make the story, give it a little life. It kind of stops at 3 people. It's kind of like we need to go twice to make it a whole story.
Yeah. But, so I want to put a pause right here and just let those who are listening or viewing know, like, we're going to tie this back into emotional intelligence, because this is really important to realize that you're like, well, how is this game part of expanding our emotional intelligence? So I want to go ahead and address that before we play this game.
Yeah.
And that is that it forces us to listen and be present. We also have to realize that other people's stories are their stories, and we cannot change their stories, whether we like it or not. That is their story. And so we can apply that to real life by realizing that we are all perceiving other people's stories, and we oftentimes try to change the narrative of
Mhm.
that. And so I love that this game, we all have our own stories, and each of those stories is a collective story.
Right.
Yes, we're not trying to change anything, we're trying to add to it. And so in life, part of being emotionally intelligent is being self aware enough to realize that my perspective is not your perspective. And to really expand my level of awareness and understanding, I have to be able to listen to you without judgment, without trying to change anything about that.
Influence. Right.
Influence. Yep, exactly. Awesome. So I just wanted to plug that real quick.
Yeah, but then also the journey that I took between February, which was significant for me, to now was a whole journey in self-awareness as well. And so that's also relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is just an example of how I would start this story based on the cards in my hand. And because you don't have cards to play along.
Right.
If you had cards, you would add on to the story. So I'm just going to give an example. So if I had the theme called I Love Nature, I'm going to read out what the cards I have to work with. So I have kitten, fiddle, parachute, quarantine, and shooting star are the words. And my describer words are in reverse, squeeze, and burst.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. One
So
of
it
the
takes some
things,
thought too. Like it takes some thought to create that.
yeah. So
Yeah.
one of the, because I have games that are being played by families now, I've gotten feedback. And so we've added the themes because it was harder to come up with a story based on the words that I shared. So the theme actually helped give it some focus. So that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the
Yeah.
things I received back. Secondly, I've added in some additional tips to include you need to name your character so that it's a foundational element that can be carried through that everyone understand who the story is about, right? Know your audience, right?
Right.
So we're going to name this character, let's see, Arthur. I don't know
Okay.
why, just Arthur, right? So, um, hey guys, did you know about Arthur? I met him during the quarantine, right? And he was a he was a burst of energy the first time I saw him. He actually told me how much he loved nature, to the point where he said that on a Tuesday, he just decided he wanted to go parachute jumping. And he likes to do it at night so that he can see the shooting stars. Right. So I'm not feeling Arthur. In fact, I could just hear the fiddle playing where he's giving me his sob sad story. And I think that he actually was trying to squeeze in a little a little extra action in his conversation. So I was trying to ignore Arthur, but he was sweet as a kitten, and so we'll give him another try. And so that was just be me being ad-libbing a little bit, but I normally would have not tried to use all the cards, but I would have just tried to weave in the start of the story and leave the next person hanging just a little bit so that they can just pick up the rest of the story with the cards. And what ends up happening is that you may know someone really well. And when they start their version of what they're adding to the story, what I have found every time I've played it, people shock and surprise me with their creativity
Mm.
of what they do with the words in their hand. Like I just got surprised this past week with family members and how they weave their part of the story. So always I think, oh, they're not going to be able to do anything with this. And just the way that they have been able to carry on the story, even if I wasn't that great at leading it off, people tend to be like, okay, let me see what I can do with this. And it ends up always being engaging, enlightening, and you get to know people just a little bit differently than you normally would.
Yeah. Yeah. Based on how they use those words and
Yeah.
the narrative that they spin, it really does tell you a lot about someone.
But
Um,
the distinction too in this that I found is a lot of games are very independent of my contribution means that I'm trying to strategize a win.
Mhm.
So although we are collectively playing this, I am in it for me and how I'm winning, right?
Right.
And my contribution directly impacts the fact that I win and get points or strategize on the next move. Where this is, and this is what I found, and by adding in my part of the story, I am trying to make the story better. I am contributing to this to collectively make it better. And I'm not in it for what's in it for me, which is very interesting to see.
Yeah. Very true. So, what is there like a time frame that people have to collect their thoughts and share their story, or is it like take the time you need? Because I personally know some people who will those people that have that perfectionist in their minds, like I need to create the best story. So they run all these different scenarios. So is there like a timer or something that,
No, and we generally, I know people like that. I generally have not found people that generally take a long time. I think it maybe takes one round to let's just get the sense of things. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be light. You do not have to use all of your words, which gives me permission to only use three things. And because you're using the words to tell the story, you don't have to make it like a 5 word sentence. Like you're not trying to make it a sentence. And I've watched people have a little bit of a time the first time, and then like the second or third time, it just gets easier. It's meant to be draw people out and contribute in even a small way. And I have not seen yet where anyone's taken any enormous amount of time to play. And I've had people that have great anxiety around things like
mm,
this, but I've literally witnessed it over and over again where people generally slide into a version of I just give my little one sentence and move on, and people that literally want to take us through time travel.
that's awesome. So this, like you said, this is a fun game. Like
It's
anybody
meant to
can
be.
play this, kids can play this. The words that you have, some of them are very playful. So it doesn't have to be a serious conversation. I would be curious though, in regards to this podcast specifically,
Hmm.
how could you potentially use this game, or can you use this game to maybe spark a conversation around a topic that, you know, may be more of a challenge
Mhm.
or kind of expand upon like quarantine? What are some emotions that we had around quarantine
Mhm.
and just opening it up for that conversation?
I think that, and this is what I've been playing around with the themes of coming up with what would be some things, because we've been very playful around the themes. We know
Mhm.
bachelorette party and family reunion and some things that we can be creative with the themes in mind. And so um, I want to address one thing first, though.
Mhm.
So, because I feel like this is more of an icebreaker experience, this is more of, you know, an appetizer to a main thing. It's not meant to be the main thing. It's meant to be something that's playful,
Yep.
something that's quick, 2, 3 rounds, if that, something that you could squeeze into the middle between other serious things or at the end to just wrap up the evening. That in itself is a way to connect with each other in a way that's non-threatening, right?
That's true.
So
That's true.
so that in itself, so that's one way out of the box without doing anything differently. The other way would be if this was an event that we wanted to introduce themes that are more serious nature, with the rule of we're going to use these themes and say, this person is dealing with grief. How do I weave that topic in? You could still tell a very playful story around the topic of grief that would evoke a sense of funniness, of laughter around the topic, because you're dealing with grief, right? So you can still use the things and the collective thoughts around the people that are participating to say, what are the things that we can contribute around this topic and see what they come up with, which then also leads into if they're contributing that theme, then it's meaningful to them.
Yeah.
And by it being selected, then you have now brought that conversation into what's happening in that time and space. And so I feel um, not that every word would be meaningful with that theme, but we could figure out a way to make it work. But I feel like it's the themes that are gonna drive the topic and the
Yeah.
conversation and the focus. And you could shift from a very, very playful conversation to something a little bit more meaningful. which I think it has the ability to do.
Is there a way, because you were talking about you can stack the cards, if you will, if someone is wanting to play this game with a group of people and maybe
Mhm.
have a more, like you said, meaningful conversation around it, how many cards are there?
Mhm.
You know, would they be able to do that? And what I'm thinking, and I know this is your vision of the game, right? And so I'm going to expand upon that a little bit because the beauty of that is as an entrepreneur, you and I both know that when we create something, sometimes other people just change it, right?
Mhm.
And the thing with your game is it's so malleable.
Mhm.
People can create their own games from this one game.
Mhm.
You could literally, like in my head, what I'm thinking is having a theme and then having just a few like emotion words or adjectives,
Mhm.
but everybody has that one theme and that one adjective, but they each have to share a different story
Mhm.
around that,
Yeah.
right? Like there's so many things that it's so versatile.
So one of the things that we want to celebrate and wanted to honor that is on the packaging. And so I'll just show, this is the unbranded packaging, but it comes in it comes in a round tube. So can you see that
Yep.
clearly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it comes in a round tube. And so on the bottom of the tube is going to be a QR code. And the QR code is actually going to be instructions. And
Nice.
as people start adding more versions, we're going to keep adding
That's
to
so
all
cool.
the
Yeah.
ways that you can play, right?
Yeah.
So that would be like, we're not going to tell you, we're going to give you my version. My version has no winner, loser. It's for fun, but I've also come up with a couple other versions. So as people are giving us these suggestions, we're going to keep adding, and this QR code will be live so that people will be able to see all the other ways people are playing and recommending to play. Because when it gets into groups and other ways, we feel like there's huge opportunities for how
Mm-hmm.
people can play. And I love that coming up with different versions, because that we are looking at what our versions. We have a youth version that we're working on and an adult version that we're also working on. So we are open to that. We have a version that could go into the school system, right? That's got, that we've gotten some words that are pretty much probably not going to be suitable for an education layer. So as we look into other versions, there's also opportunities to do that as well.
Very cool.
Mhm.
I really like that idea of the QR code because that way it's not, because with most games you get the pamphlet with it that has like the
Mhm.
different ways you can play it. But with the QR code, you can constantly have live updates
Right.
for that. Awesome. So what is the next step for you? So anyone who's interested in maybe playing this game with their family or friends or using it to spark conversation, what does the time frame look like? How can they learn more about the game?
Mhm.
All of that good stuff.
If you Google search One Good Seed, you will come to find our webpage, which we are doing signups to the One Good Seed community right now. Actually, I decided today I am launching on Sunday.
Oh,
I am launching on Sunday. And so what I'm launching is my I Fund Women website, where I will be doing my crowdfunding campaign. And so I have my manufacturer partner. And in order to place my initial order, I have to order at least 1,001 games. That's my
oh
number.
wow.
It's like 999, right? So I said 1,001 sounds like a number I need, right? So in order to do that, I have to pre-order this many games. And so starting Sunday, my community will be able to place their pre-order. And so pre-order, we'll have 5 different ways that you can support. So number one is amplify the message that we're going to be sharing on iFund Women, if that's how you can support. We feel the game is called One Good Seed. I feel like every mention, support, ounce, whatever that looks like, are all seeds that we accept. Right. Number two is going to be actually a monetary donation. If you just feel that you want to just donate toward the effort of a small business, a woman entrepreneur, a founder, and that is what you can do. Large or small seeds matter. All seeds matter. Number three would be to actually pre-order your game. So at the beginning of the year, once we have met our goal, we will be placing our initial release order. And so you as a early adopter will receive priority delivery of your game ahead of any other retail or wholesale accounts. We know that the timing of some shipments from some of these delivery manufacturing could be limited. So we will be adding any updates on that. We are kind of stuck in what that looks like right now. We're hoping that some of that will clear out next year, but we're still going forward with our order. They're still delivering. They're still making things. And so we're just going to fall into the cycle and just be open to when that happens. But we're going to be providing clarity on when that looks like. And then number 4, we have what we call take, then give. So that is take one for yourself and give another. And then number 5 with supporting would be just like what you're doing, Brittany, is like if you have a platform where this message resonates with others, we would love to share this story. And so those are going to be 5 ways that we will, starting Sunday, be accepting and collecting. And we got some really cool rewards that we're going to be sharing as well, which are added additions to. We're going to be creating some lapel pins and some initial releasing on some totes, some eco-friendly seed paper, where I'll be sending out my thank you notes so that you can plant those pieces of paper after you've read my beautiful note. So we have some really cool things that we're looking forward to launching.
Very cool. Awesome. I look forward to getting it and playing it. And this is the perfect time too, around the holidays. It's a good gift.
Well, it'll be like for next year.
Next year, but it's a good gift to invest in now.
Yes.
Let's say that.
Yes, because when it does come out, all of the early adopters will have it.
Right.
And so you'll have it before everyone else. And so I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at it. It is a seed. It is definitely a seed that you're looking to sprout next year, and watching that grow and watching this story grow. And I'm super excited also because part of my order, we're going to be ordering our Seedtacular medallions, which is, you've alluded to it earlier, because we don't believe in winners and losers, we are pulling this out of the game, that we recognize people that have best played the hand they've been dealt, which is true for the game, but it's also true in life. And taking the cards that we have, and we both have really amazing backstories, but taking all of that and shuffling it up and re-looking at it and, doing a little magic to it. And then we come up with something that's truly amazing. And then we call that Seedtacular. And we want to start giving out those medallions, and then allowing people to also sew those Seedtacular medallions into their own community. And so they'll look similar to the cards themselves, but they're customized for the Seedtacular, and they're going to be physical items that you can sew into other people.
Nice. Awesome.
Yes.
But not literally sew into other people.
Give.
We
plant.
Some extra clarification, just
plant.
in case, I don't want you to have a lawsuit, right? And somebody tried to sew.
No needles involved. Give.
There you go.
Show some love.
There
Recognize.
we go.
Recognize.
I like
Recognize.
it. Well, Kimblin, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. And everyone can find your information and more about One Good Seed in the comments below.
It's been amazing. You're doing an amazing job. I'm so proud of you.
Likewise,
awesome.
my friend.